What's up, Cloud Gamers? Welcome back to the Cloud Gaming Extreme channel. We're taking a look at the Callisto protocol running here on Shadow, more specifically their power upgrade plan, which is basically an RTX 30 equivalent. If you've missed our review on that, make sure you check that out on the channel. But we're going to take a look at some different settings here for Callisto and what we're looking at for performance with the hardware. So starting off, I want to take a look at the app real quick. So we are into Shadow here and I'm streaming up to 144 FPS on my monitor here, and my bandwidth stays really good. That's going to change depending on what you're doing in the game and everything, and then my latency will be 19 to 23 milliseconds typically here. And again, you can see my screen here. It's a 240 hertz monitor, but Shadow's giving me 144 FPS on there. I'm going to be using my Xbox Series X controller in the game. As far as my network, I'm 60 megabits per second here, giving me pretty clean picture quality and good latency when it comes to Shadow. Getting into the game's settings itself, we are using unlimited frame rate, 1440p full screen. And as far as the lighting, everything's turned up here, including ray tracing. We're going to go through and change these settings and show you some different performance, but I want to start off with everything turned on and basically maxed out here for Callisto. We don't have film grain or motion blur turned on. We are using temporal AA, which will allow us to use FSR 2, and I'll have that on balanced here as we get into ray tracing. So as we get into the gameplay here, you'll see that performance starts off pretty decently, and for the most part, it can offer a half decent frame rate, but you'll see big jumps and dips and issues in frame rates and frame times as you see here. It's going to happen again as we get into the video with ray tracing on here, and part of that is CPU related, probably also RAM related, as we don't have the fastest RAM here either. The GPU is certainly capable, but doesn't get pushed the way that it should be with Shadow's power upgrade. You'll see huge issues here where you could go down to 1 or 4 FPS while areas load in. Now, I've tried this in different areas of the game and messing around with the settings, but as long as I have ray tracing on and everything happening, this just kind of seems to happen as I go into different areas, and the CPU and everything just really seems to have trouble pushing things here. Now, if we switch over to maxed out settings with FSR on quality and RT off, we get a much better experience where our frame rate typically can stay higher, but even when it dips, it won't give us as much trouble with those huge stutters and issues that really bring you out of the game. And most of the time, you'll see much better GPU usage as well, since the system is able to keep up a little bit better without RT. And as I go into this area with these settings, it works pretty well. We get a big frame rate drop there as expected coming into the room, but it doesn't pull you out of the game, and it's not a big stutter or drop like with RT on. So I really got to stick with ray tracing off in this game. However, pretty much maxed out settings with or without FSR, you can get away with pretty well. And we'll take a look at no FSR here in just a second as well. But I think performance here is pretty good. If you wanted to lock a 60 FPS experience, you might have to bring some settings down, as other areas of the game can be harder to run. Now this spot here I wanted to take a look at with no FSR on at all, but leaving the rest of the settings the same, so we're using FXAA instead. RT still off and maxed out on the rest of the settings. Performance stays pretty good, but you'll see we do come down under that 60 FPS mark, so that's what I was talking about with or without FSR. There are areas of the game that it will drop, so depending on what you want to get out of the game will have to depend on how you want to tweak some of those other settings. I do recommend using FSR if you want to keep it a little bit higher. I know we're not really pushing that GPU as hard as we should with what we have here with the CPU and potentially issues with the RAM as well, but I think sometimes it does still help. You can see out here, it wouldn't matter if I was using FSR or not, and I've tested it with both. There are areas of the game that are really crushing where you'll see GPU usage is just way down because the rest of the system's just not really keeping up. It doesn't mean the game's not playable though. We do still maintain pretty close to 60 FPS, and there aren't really any stutters or immersion breaking things with their performance, but it is something to note that with the Shadow power upgrade, and we talked about it in our review, there are things lacking when it comes to the 4-core 8-thread CPU and the RAM, which seems to be running somewhere between 13 and 2400 megahertz as we continue to look into that. So definitely some improvements I wish we had on Shadow power upgrade that we don't, but it is much more capable than Shadow Boost. And as far as playing Callisto Protocol, it's definitely a playable experience that you can tweak and get a 60 FPS or higher experience out of the game if you want to. But anyways guys, thanks a lot for coming to check out the video. As always, I really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.